Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this local review body for the 26th of January 2026, the first one of this year. As always, I'll start by introducing the top table with me. I am Councillor Bob Braun. I am the convener of the local review body, and I have with me today on my left Councillor Richard Waters, and on my right, Councillor Ken Harvey. To my far right is Mrs. Leslie Tierney. Now, she is a planning advisor to the local review body, and she's not part of the planning department and has had no previous involvement with any of the applications on the agenda today until they came forward for appeal. To my far left is Mr. Callum MacLeod, who is our legal advisor today, and to his left is Ms. Audrey Brown, who is from Democratic Services, and I thank her because she's the one who sets all this up and gets all the paperwork in the right places for us. We have a slight change this morning, which I'll come to as we go along. But first of all, do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Harvey.
No declarations of interest from me.
No declarations of interest.
Okay. We've done the declarations of interest. We'll go to the minutes, if I may. The minutes of the last meeting, normally it's only myself who comes forward because obviously we changed members, but on this occasion I'm happy with those. Mr. Councillor Harvey was with me, so are you happy with the minutes as well?
Yeah, I was happy with the minutes.
Fine. Okay, that's out of the way. Fine. Now, as those of you who saw the last episode were aware, we had a deferment on our application list case in Taymouth at Taymouth Castle. It was decided at the time that we would have a site visit, and therefore the case was deferred. We subsequently had that site visit, which took place, and we now have that case coming back to us today. Now, to maintain continuity, with me on that panel was Councillor Harvey and Bailey McLaren, who is with us in the room. And to maintain that, and as was agreed, she will now come and join us on this panel. Now, members, before we do that, if I could just ask, are you happy to move that item on the agenda forward?
I'm happy to move that.
Yes, happy to proceed.
Marvin. We're having some problems with the mic. Is that working okay? I'll keep it on so it's on all the time. Yeah. Well, welcome, Bailey McLaren. So we're now looking at the case that was deferred back to us again. This is the erection of 2 estate properties and garages, formation of access road connected to existing estate road and associated works on zone 4 to 04 for Taymouth Castle, Kenmore. So Mrs. Tierney, if I can hand over to you now to do that for me.
Thank you, convener. Yeah, well, so we'll run through the PowerPoint, although I do appreciate everybody's been to the site and are aware of everything, but we'll just run through that and then some information about the appeal to follow. So we move to the next slide. Location of the appeal site at Kenmore there at Taymouth Castle, in the middle of literally in the middle of the whole estate there where the yellow star is. Next slide, please. And then just zooming in, I mean, I appreciate there's various bits of work ongoing, developments across the site, and the golf course obviously as well, but the particular site is within that yellow circle there. There are trees on the site. The area of ground to the north is where the rest housing in this particular zone are proposed, and the dairy building is within that as well. Next slide, please. So just as a bit of background, the historic permissions were approved as enabling development to allow the category A listed Taymouth Castle and other listed buildings and structures to be restored and brought back into active use. The estate is designed as a historic garden and designed landscape, or HGDL for short, which has of course changed over a period of time. Approved development was established by planning and listed building approvals in 2005 and later amended in 2011, including 163 new residential estate properties and other leisure and hospitality buildings. Works to fully complete the conversion of the castle to a hotel are ongoing. Another approved development within the estate includes a golf club house, equestrian centre and a Scandinavian spa. So the housing or estate properties have been split into zones 1 to 6, with zones 1, 2 and 4 approved to date and current applications in zones 3, 5 and 6. Next slide. And then there is a strategic planning framework as well for progressing work across the estate. And that includes a schedule of conservation works, core path curtilage plan and temporary arrangements during construction, and landscape and biodiversity management. Slide, please. So this is kind of zooming in on the area 4, if you like. So you can see within the yellow circle is the zone 4 area, and then the area red there and the arrow is the location for the 2 properties. Next slide, please. And these are just some of the plans that were accompanied the application. So literally the red line location plan and the location of the houses within that yellow circle. And then zooming in a bit more closely into the particular zone 4, the existing site plan. You can see the existing trees, the old dairy building in the middle, and then you can see to the south there the treed area where the red line is around the site within the yellow circle. And then a proposed site plan here, a simple site plan, nothing else is shown on it, but it just shows the location of the 2 properties within a red line. And then this is the more detailed proposed master plan for this area. So we can see the other properties within zone 4. Dairy building in the centre there with the yellow circle around it, which is to be converted to the clubhouse. And then plot 17 and 18, as they're called, that are the subject of this application shown at the bottom. And this is a tree removal plan, just so you can see, obviously there is quite a lot of tree removal and tree management across the entire estate and within the various development zones. You can see the trees for removal highlighted in red, and there are a few within the site for the proposed 2 houses. And then that's just zooming in more closely on the tree removal plan. Then we've got some elevational drawings for the 2 properties. So this is the 4 elevations for the house on plot 17, and then on plot 18 is the next slide. Next slide. And then, so these are some images now. So there's obviously a lot of supporting information with the application itself. So these are images that are from the supporting information that the applicant has put in. So these are images of, at the top, without the development, and on the bottom, photo montages essentially showing the houses. And they're within the red squares that are shown on those photographs. So this is from the dairy building looking towards the application site. And then this one is looking from the west across Kenmore Park to the application site. So again, the one at the top is the existing view, and on the bottom is the proposed view, and the location of the properties within that red rectangle. And then this is a view from the west towards the river, again at the top as existing, at the bottom as proposed. You'll have been able to see these in a bit more detail within the papers, obviously. They are at a distance, so not as obvious. Again, a more distant view from the west, so at the top the existing view, and at the bottom the proposed. And then from the east across Kenmore Park, so we're looking towards the dairy, and then at the bottom the proposed site on the left, and the dairy building area on the right. And then this is from the east closer to the site. So that particular coppice of trees with the two houses now shown within it. Then 3 views here: the existing view, the proposed view, and proposed as per the very original application, which I'll come back to. This is from the west towards the area where the houses were previously approved beside the golf course. And then these are, obviously, we've all been to the site, but these are photographs of the site and the surrounding area and towards the dairy. So this is looking towards the site with the orange arrow across Kenmore Park. This is looking west. And again, looking west as we come towards, more close towards the application site within the trees there. And again, just a slightly different angle, hopefully north. Then more closely as well, this is again is probably looking a little bit more towards the southwest. And then this is from kind of the middle of the road as you would head up to the development area and where the dairy is. So we're now looking back across Kenmore Park to the east, the application site, showing where the orange arrow is. And then this is just slightly closer now, so the application site on the left, where the orange arrow is, and the dairy building there in the distance where the yellow arrow indicates. And then this is a more distant view of the plots. Again, the application site behind the trees there with the orange arrow, and the dairy building and behind the trees where the yellow arrow is. And then this is now looking across Deer Park. So this is now looking in a westerly direction. Effectively, the appeal sites are behind you. We're going to walk back round towards the road and the application site. So next slide, please. And this is now looking back across towards the east. So there's a number of areas of trees. The appeal site is in behind another stand of trees and behind the ones that you can see there. And then again, the dairy building is in behind the trees where the yellow arrow is. And this is coming back up. You've got the dairy building on the right-hand side, and the appeal site, not necessarily in view here, but this is a distant view. Then this is looking across to the dairy building, into zone 4 in the middle where the other houses have been granted permission. Again, this is a distant view. You can't see the appeal site from here, but it is on the left there, past where the orange arrow is. And then this is looking back from the dairy towards the appeal site on the right-hand side there. And again, moving further back towards the dairy. And then this is now looking from the dairy down into zone 4 on the right there, and down across to the appeal site where the orange arrow is. And then this is looking into a slightly closer image of the dairy building itself and zone 4 where the other houses which have permission are located on the left. Just a close-up of the dairy building itself, which is obviously under construction. Can't really get much closer at the moment. And then just this is an image of the master plan as originally approved. There's obviously some commentary in the appeal statement about the houses which have been removed from that since that approval. So we'll just turn to some more detailed information. So the appeal is for full planning permission for the erection of 2 estate properties and 2 associated garages within Taymouth Castle Estate, Kenmore. This application is one of 3 submitted for a section of the estate named as Zone 4 within the planning submission, which is located on the north side of the estate, next to the dairy bound by the River Tay to the north. There is an extant planning permission within the estate for a total of 167 estate properties granted in 2005 and 2011. And each of these applications have been implemented and are extant. A total of 22 estate properties were approved in this part of the estate, and the proposals within Zone 4 propose an overall reduction of 8 properties when compared with the extant permission. This includes the 6 properties to the south and southwest of the dairy, 5 to the immediate northwest, and 11 further properties extending to the west, wrapping around the golf course layout. The proposal is now to omit the properties extending to the west, which is now proposed to be part of the golf course design. The Zone 4 development is now proposed to be more nucleated, focused within a more compact grouping around the dairy with a total of 14 properties. This particular application refers to 2 properties located on the southern edge of the Zone 4 grouping. The properties are proposed to be served by a new access track linking to the existing located to the south of the dairy. The original proposals for the estate were noted by the Planning Service did cause some concern due to the potential impact on the setting of the Category A listed dairy building when viewed from the east, and also the fact that development here would interfere with the visual and spatial relationship between the 2 very distinct elements of woodland and parkland of the historic garden and design landscape, and would interfere with important east-west key views between the Deer Park in the east and Kenmore Park in the west. As such, this area was removed, and a condition on this original approval specifically precluded development in this area. Planning permission and listed building consent has also recently been granted within Zone 4 to convert the dairy into a golf clubhouse. The existing planning permission does not expressly restrict the occupation of the consented properties within the estate. However, there is an occupancy condition. So the single reason for refusal that the proposal is contrary to policy 27A and 29 of the Perth and Kinross Local Development Plan 2 and policies 7C and I of National Planning Framework 4, as the proposal would impact detrimentally on the setting of the Category A listed dairy when viewed from the east. Furthermore, the development would interfere with the visual and spatial relationship between the very distinct elements of woodland and parkland of the Taymouth Castle Historic Garden and Designed Landscape, and would interfere with important east-west key views between the Deer Park in the east and Kenmore Park in the west. The tree felling which is proposed would also further erode this key view. The proposed estate properties also sit above the majority of other elements of the golf course in this location, which will mean the properties will be visually prominent and therefore failing to protect, preserve, or enhance the cultural significance of the HGDL. There is also no extant planning permission on this site, unlike other areas of the estate where planning permission has previously been granted. So the assessment by the Planning Service, placemaking policies 1A and 1B require new development to respect the character and visual amenity of the area, and policy 14 of NPF 4 seeks to deliver well-designed development and applying the place principle. Furthermore, policy 39 of the LDP2 states that the existing landscape should be capable of accommodating the new development. Further guidance is also provided within the associated placemaking supplementary guidance. Policies 27A and 29 of LDP2 and Policy 7, Historic Assets and Places of NPF 4, references historic gardens and design landscapes and seeks to ensure that any change protects, preserves or enhances the cultural significance and the integrity of the site, and they also seek to protect the setting of listed buildings. Given there is no extant permission in this specific area and the previous concerns about development here, the application is supported by a heritage statement and series of visualisations. These seek to demonstrate that the revised arrangements for Zone 4 omit a number of properties around the horseshoe section of Kenmore Park to the northwest of the dairy, and this justifies the current proposal. Whilst there has been an overall reduction in the number of estate properties within Zone 4, the properties are now larger. During assessment of the 2011 application, it was accepted that the horseshoe section of Kenmore Park was a less sensitive part of the overall design landscape and therefore had scope for development, as it sits remote from key views and listed buildings and structures in a lower lying part of the estate close to the River Tay. The developer has now chosen to omit properties from this part of the HGDL to accommodate a larger golf course. The site subject to this current application is considered to be a much more sensitive part of the HGDL and remote from the remainder of the approved properties in Zone 4. The site is located to the immediate south of the A-listed dairy building, and the proposed development would impact detrimentally on its setting when viewed from the east. There is currently an open view across the estate, with the dairy being the prominent feature. The felling which is proposed as part of this application would open up that view further, and development here would also interfere with the visual and spatial relationship between the two woodland and parkland areas of the HGDL. This area also sits above the majority of other elements of the golf course in this location, which will mean the properties will be visually prominent. The argument made in the heritage statement that the impact on the setting of the dairy is negated by the improvement to the wider HGDL by removing properties from the horseshoe area is not accepted. These parts of the estate have very different sensitivities, and therefore overall impacts on the HGDL and the setting of the dairy are not considered to be comparable in terms of extent of impact on cultural heritage. And further, the tree loss which is proposed here is also considered to be detrimental. In terms of the wider landscape framework in the form of the existing trees, woodland and topography, within this particular site there is one category A tree proposed for felling, 6 category B trees and 2 category C, therefore 9 in total, which would reduce the tree cover within this part of the estate. And given the concerns regarding the sensitivity of this part of the HGDL, the tree loss indicated is regrettable. And whilst compensatory planting is proposed, this could take some time to mature. In terms of the applicant's case, the proposal is suitable in siting and scale, reflecting the importance of designated assets and the landscape in which they sit. The proposal results in no harm to the setting of the A-listed dairy building, nor to the visual and spatial relationship between distinct elements of the HGDL. The principle of development within the estate is established through extant consents, but these should not serve as a totality to resist revised or future development as the needs of the estate develop for the future, consistent with the estate's variations throughout its history. The proposal represents an important development project for the area, and a holistic approach needs to be taken to ensure the significance of the project is realised and recognised. The applicant has demonstrated their commitment to rural revitalisation in line with NPF 4 spatial principles to ensure the delivery of productive places. The proposal is proportionate, appropriate and integrates into the surrounding character of the area in comparison to the extant consent of 167 estate properties, and the significance of the dairy building will remain unharmed. The principal view of the dairy is westwards towards Loch Tay, and the design and orientation of the dairy presents a side flank in the direction of the appeal site, suggesting there was no intention to have any view across the landscape in this direction. In winter, it will be possible to glimpse the parts of the housing through the trees to the south of the dairy. However, the trees will remain the centre viewpoint. When the trees are in leaf, the houses will be further obscured, resulting in a limited impact on the setting of the dairy. And houses have been approved in closer proximity to the dairy than the current application. The key features of the landscape remain obstructed, including the dairy, the skyline, and the planting gaps that provide views through to Kenmore Park. The use of natural materials and recessive colours ensures that the houses will not be prominent in the landscape. The proposals across Zone 4 have been microsited in subtle locations in direct comparison to the extant consent, which approved a strip of properties along the edge of the golf course, and the revised design principles seek to reduce the visibility of the properties in this part of the estate's landscape. The site-specific nature of the proposed development has to be assessed in detail as opposed to a weak justification for refusal under LDP policy, which serves as a significant barrier to the development. This, along with the fallback of a historical condition, does not fully assess the detail of the case, and the officer's assessment does not consider any other eventuality for development in this area. The extant permission is important, but it cannot be the basis of refusal for new proposals or for proposals in new locations. National and local planning policy has evolved over the 14 years since the original permission was granted. The condition which restricted development in this area does not serve as a permanent prohibition, and disproportionate weight has been placed on why development in the area was refused previously. The applicant has demonstrated its commitment to the restoration and revival of Taymouth Estate through the immediate reduction of development across all zones, and the Zone 4 applications have already seen a significant loss of plots, with 4 removed as part of the recent planning process, on top of a reduction in the number of units approved in 2011. Further reductions threaten the viability of the project, despite the immense investment from the applicant to support the restoration of the castle. And in terms of other considerations, just to point out, there are no objections from any third parties. Historic Environment Scotland have not commented. Obviously, that's not to be taken as their support because they make reference back to the council's own heritage officers. And obviously, there's some concern from the conservation officer that the removal of the plots immediately west and southwest of the dairy are welcomed, but nevertheless, the two new properties are an unacceptable visual intrusion on both the listed building and the designed landscape. There's no comment from the Community Council, and there's no comments from the Heritage Trust apart from looking for a programme of archaeological works if the permission is granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I'll open up to questions. Councillor Harvey, any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple, but I'll just ask the first one. One of your earlier drawings showed a picture of the houses with the trees behind it. Was that an accurate representation of the trees or just like pictures of trees? You go back elevations, aye.
I think that's very much an artistic.
Yes, that's what I was
It's
thinking.
more the elevation of drawings of the properties. I think probably what's more representative is the artistic houses within the photograph.
Yeah. These slight.
Which are not the easiest to see on the presentation. You could have seen them.
Yeah, I'm just reminding myself because my memory.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh. So as far as we're aware, these elevations are representative of what's happening.
This is a more accurate
Aye.
representation of what it's going to look like with the trees opposed to the
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
No. I remember when I was there too. Okay. And so those elevations are that will be the houses that will be built in there. My other question.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
My other question was, I wasn't fully. I don't know why I didn't pick this up, but this is a bit of a replacement for the house to remove the horseshoe area. So is that kind of round the back to the left? Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Okay, so this is the original housing master plan from 2011. So you can see the horseshoe area on the left. Sorry, I should have maybe highlighted it a bit more right at the start. So a lot of those properties are no longer there. They're part of the golf course design now. So what they're proposing obviously is the two within the area on the right hand side now within that yellow circle rather than the horseshoe.
Cool. So just to clarify, so they've taken a bit more land for the golf course, reduced the number of houses, and these are two replacements, kind of. Right, okay, right, that's fine.
And Bailey McLaren.
Yeah, thanks, convener. I'm recalling on our site visit that there was a stopping area within the golf course. I wouldn't call it a clubhouse. That is just out with the boundary of some of your photographs, am I correct? It was a rest area that was built into the golf course. You maybe didn't see it then. It was a yeah. Is that something? It's visual if you look towards the dairy when you're in front of it, but it's not visual in that plot area looking across the landscape. Is this something that we should, bear in mind that that has been built in the vicinity of the dairy as well, of the Class A listed building?
I mean, it's not mentioned specifically in any of the either the council's or the planning services papers or the appellants particularly. I think what it demonstrates is the attention to, you can integrate buildings with the right materials and so on. It doesn't appear to have had it's not massively obvious within the site there.
Thanks for that. I'm just wondering, one of the slides could go back to the overview of the trees that are being removed. I'm not sure we're going to go forward or backwards on this one. Back. Oh, no, back. Oh yeah, that's right. That's at the bottom there, isn't it? That's right. Yeah. So the green is what's staying and the red is going. Just to remind myself. Fine. Okay. Fine. Okay. Yep. Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay. Right. Okay. Fine. Thank you. Just to remind myself when we were on site. That's all. Right, members, so with questions passed, can we proceed to determine the application for review on the basis of the information before us, that is the information contained within the papers and the presentation by the planning advisor? Councillor Harvey?
Yes.
And Bailey McLaren?
Yes, happy to.
Yeah, and I too am happy to go ahead on this one. And I'll start for us, if I may. I think first thing to say is to thank everybody involved who accompanied us on the site visit. Had our own planning officer with us. He took a lot of time with us, and obviously the project team were with us and took us around and allowed us the time to explore the site completely, and took time with us and drove us there, of course, because it's a bit of a trip from where the parking space is. But my thanks to them anyway. And secondly, I think it's also important to say that both sides have put a very good, strong case across to us, and that, again, we come to the point where we have to make a decision on that. But in this instance, I think the best way forward is to give my decision and then go the thoughts behind that decision. My decision is to allow the appeal, and my thinking behind it is this. First thing is the properties themselves, when we were there, are not really visible from the road. You have to be in the estate to see them. I would suspect most people walking through will be people who are either members of the club itself, of the hotel, or owners of properties within the Tamworth estate. And I think that's an important factor. Nobody outside of the area can see it. Obviously, there may be locals who walk through, because it is open to locals to see it, but I think they will be in the minority. Second point here is that the estate itself is under considerable change to what it was. There's a lot of building work, a lot of development work, a lot of changes, the golf course itself. It's a tremendous change, the whole estate. I think that has to be taken into account, and is one of the reasons behind my thought. As to the dairy itself, yes, it is a listed building. It is within visual range, but it itself is going to be changed. It's in the process of becoming the clubhouse for the golf course. It won't be, although the outside will be the same, it won't be an isolated building derelict or monument. It's going to be an active building with people going in and out of it, and I think that's going to change the concept of what it is. Visual aspect, yes, but it will be hidden by trees, particularly in the summer. And the final point, I think, is that yes, these houses will obviously break the visual aspect of where they are. They will be hidden partially in the summer with trees. They are there, they're on the estate. As I say, it's a massive change to the estate. And having looked at it from all angles, from the golf course, from the hotel side, yes, some of them will be seen, but I don't think it's going to be detrimental to the whole area that is now under such a change. As I said, they were my thoughts behind giving it an approval. Bailey McLaren?
Thank you, convener. Yes, I am concurring with you. I would be minded to approve the appeal. My overview is, yes, it is a sensitive area. And it's right to draw our attention to the List A building of the old dairy. There will be a visual impact, but however, the visual landscape is changing significantly. And once the construction of the Zone 4 housing starts, it will impact it. So these two proposed properties will be in keeping with that wider improvement. So the landscape is accommodating the proposed development. And yes, as you have pointed out, that there is a vast change, positive changes. So what is it, not only is this development refurbishing the old dairy, let's not forget about the iconic property of the castle itself. But I see these two properties on balance will fit within the visual landscape.
Councillor Harvey.
Hello. Sorry, that was my silly voice. Where was I? I'll start again. Yeah, I'm similar to my colleagues. I'm inclined to accept the appeal. I think the impact on the dairy isn't huge, as was pointed out. I think the aspect of it is the right way. I see where the planners are coming from with respect to the view through from the two parks, and I'm almost tempted to refuse it on those grounds. But having been there, having seen the site, the size of the buildings, the kind of location, and also, as both my colleagues pointed out, the amount of different work that's been done here, I think we're okay. I think we need to be careful if there's another one that comes out that was in a Pacific excluded zone before. We need to have a look at that if that happens again. But in this case, I'm quite happy to go along with my two colleagues. Thanks.
Thank you both. So, Mr. McLeod, we've got a unanimous decision to approve, obviously with all the necessary conditions that go with it. Okay.
Thank you. Just confirming that we have a 3-0 unanimous decision in favour of upholding the review and approving the planning application subject to the recommended conditions. This was deemed by the local review body to be justifiable in respect of a derivation from policy on the basis that there will be minimal visual impact on the landscape, and the fact that the particular development is a place of constant change, and that these two properties will have a positive impact on the site itself. So that's deemed to be a justifiable departure from policy.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Bailey McLaren, for that. You can now have permission to step down. Thank you for your input this afternoon. And it's all approved now for you. Yeah. We'll just have a quick changeover. Councillor Waters, you can come back with us now. Welcome back, Councillor Waters. And, apologies to anybody watching. We're having a bit of a problem with the microphones this afternoon, but we seem to be working on it at the moment. So we'll move on, members. We'll now come back to the agenda in the correct order. So we're looking at item 4.1, which is review of condition 3 on planning permission 25/00865 FLL, alterations to vehicular access, erection of great gate pillar and installation of replacement gates at Downsgar, I think that's how you pronounce it, Killiecrankie in Pitlochry. Mrs. Tierney, if you can take us through this one.
Thank you, convener. Again, we'll just run through the slides first. So location of the appeal site here, the old road, if you like, in between that and the A9 now. Next slide. And then zooming in there, we can see the property within the red circle, road and the river. And then some drawings that were submitted with the application. So the appeal site there, red, west map. And then the site plan, so the red line, site boundary, around the large garden area, points of access and the house itself. And then these are some drawings of the proposal. So on the left there is an artist, the drawing of the gate pier that has fallen over for being struck by a tree and the damaged gate. And then the other drawing is the plan of that. And then the proposal to widen the access to 4 metres wide, recreate the gate pier and construct the new gates in the middle. Some photographs to run through. So this is the property from the roadside there, large verge, and the house just up from the roadside. And then this is from the opposite side of the road, so we're looking across to the property and the gate posts access in and the gate posts there. And then just starting to zoom in so we can see the existing remaining gate post and where the other one is fallen over. And then these are images. So on the left, just looking at where the gate post is collapsed. This is looking east, I suppose it is. And then this is from the from inside the site, looking out across the access onto the main road. And this is looking a bit further back along the roadside, just so you can see kind of verge boundary of the neighbouring property and where the access into the house is. And this is just looking in the opposite direction, just so you can appreciate the road in that area. This is looking west. And then this is looking back towards the access point from around the middle of the house, verge, and the garden boundary. And then this is the other entrance to the house. Again, you can see the couple of gate piers there. Would have been essentially the same at the other side. And the access where in question with the blue arrow. Excuse me. This is the other access point. And then looking from the other access point out to the main road. So the appeal property, the house, Dalmascar, is a C-listed house located to the east side of the B8097 at Killiecrankie. Planning permission and listed building consent were granted for the relocation of the gate pier, installation of gates, and widening the vehicular access following damage done to the existing entrance from a fallen tree. With a view to having condition 3 reconsidered, a further application was submitted, but the condition has been applied again, requiring the access to be reformed to a particular technical standard. Conditions 1 and 2 are standard in terms of timescales and compliance with the approved plans, and it's condition 3 which is the subject of this review. It states that prior to the development hereby approved being completed or brought into use, the vehicular access shall be formed in accordance with Perth and Kinross Council's Road Development Guide, Type B, Figure 5.6 access detail, with 6 drop curbs of Type A road construction detail. The Type A road construction detail shall continue into the entrance for a minimum distance of 5 metres. The reason given for the condition is in the interests of road safety to ensure an acceptable standard of construction within the public boundary. The specification for the access as submitted retains a loose gravel finish right up to the junction with the public road and proposes no measures to contain the loose gravel to prevent it from spilling onto the road. So what's quite important here is to highlight the comments from transport planning particularly. The applicant is proposing to widen the vehicle access onto the public road network, and this will require works to be done within the verge of the public road network, and as such, it will require the vehicle access onto the public road network to be widened. It is a statutory requirement of the Roads Scotland Act 1984, Section 63, for anyone who wishes to access their property with a vehicle over a verge. This verge must be upgraded to withstand the loadings of vehicles that will be taken across it. And as such, the applicant will be required to form the vehicle access to the standards required by Perth and Kinross Council as Roads Authority. This access shall be sealed to formalise the access from the public road and to prevent further discharge of surfacing aggregate onto the public road. The applicant's case is that the property has 2 points of access and a semicircular driveway. A large tree to the left of the access blew down, and it's proposed to rebuild the damaged gate pillar with the original stone, but to widen the access slightly so as to allow for the safe passage of larger vehicles. The highway safety issue that the imposition of the disputed condition is seeking to address is the slight likelihood of gravel spilling onto the road and increasing road traffic safety risks. The much more significant highway issue that the widening of the access is seeking to address is the parking of HGVs that are too large to fit between the existing gate posts on the public highway and blocking one half of the public road with a 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. This is also part of the National Cycle Network route. If the condition is not removed from the planning permission, the applicant will not widen the access, and the clear dangers associated with large vehicles partially blocking the B8079 will remain. The highway benefits of removing the condition therefore clearly outweigh the benefits of imposing it, meaning that the imposition of the condition was neither necessary nor reasonable. Whilst acknowledging that the condition imposed on the most recent grant of permission required 6 drop curbs of type A road construction detail, as opposed to a 3-metre radii curbing type A road construction, both also require the type A road construction details to continue into the entrance for a minimum of 5 metres. This comprises 300 millimetres of sub-base type 1, then 40 millimetres of dense bitumen macadam, and then 25 millimetres of hot rolled asphalt. The end result would therefore still represent an overly engineered solution that would be inappropriate in a rural area within the national park. It is argued that the required design is at odds with the government advice contained in Designing Streets, which states that good design should derive from an intelligent response to location and that design should be moving away from processes which tend to result in streets with a poor sense of place. Planning officers do not need to impose conditions simply because their colleagues on roads state they are required and they are able to exercise planning judgment. The imposition of the conditions requiring a heavily engineered access to be formed would cause harm to the setting of the Category C listed house and the character and appearance of the national park. If the appeal is not upheld, the applicant will simply rebuild the gate post in its original position, meaning the HGVs will not be able to access the property and will continue to park, partially blocking the public road, which is considered to be a more highway safety issue for motorists and cyclists than the slight likelihood of a small amount of gravel spilling out onto the carriageway. So just to come back to the planning services assessment, accessing the property with a heavy goods vehicle over a gravel surface, albeit on an occasional basis, would likely exacerbate the issue of gravel spilling onto the road. Accesses should be designed for safety and convenience of all potential users, and loose gravel spilling onto the road is a particular danger to motorcycles. The case in favour of having a sealed surface outweighs the increased likelihood of gravel spilling onto the road and increasing traffic road safety. And just in terms of other matters, just for reference, it's the policies of the Cairngorm National Park LDP which apply in this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll open up to questions. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, convener. Do we know? You know, and I've seen the drawing. Unfortunately, it's digital, and they can't work out the width of the original gate and what the proposed width of the gate is. You know, so it can work out the differences between them. How much they're looking to widen the gates by.
Thank you, councillor. Even on the drawings I've got, it's a little bit blurry. I can try and have a look on the portal and see if I can find it. Because even on my presentation, it is a little bit unclear, if I'm honest, the exact distance. It looks about a metre less. Let me see if I can.
Just roughly is enough. I think just to get an idea. It's not just a 10-15 centimeters. It's considerably more. Thank you.
And Councillor Harvey?
Yes, convener, thank you. Just a question, I'm just looking at Google Maps here as well. Which is it, the most northerly one that's been knocked down by a tree, or the most northerly one? Okay, and that's the one they're going to widen to accommodate the trucks. Okay.
I just have one question myself. The gates themselves, I know we're widening, but they're not going to be moved in any way to close or further than the road. They're literally just going to be widened up and new gates put on.
Yeah, it's just the widening. It's no closer.
Fine. Okay, so if we have no more questions, members, can we proceed to determine the application for review on the basis of the information before us? That is the information contained within the papers and the presentation by the planning advisor. Or do we need more information? Councillor Waters?
Happy to proceed.
And Councillor Harvey?
Happy to proceed.
I'm too. I'm happy to proceed, and I'll start us off on this one. I'll find my notes. This is a bit of a straightforward one in its own way. We're just looking to remove a condition. My thoughts here are that we're looking to widen the gate. It's some form of in and out driveway, and I would suggest that, as it stood at the moment, most vehicles get through. Maybe oil top-ups or dust carts can't get through, but I would suggest dust carts will probably work from the road. But the point is that there is already an access there with an access way through the gate. So my inclination here would be, given that's already there and it already operates, we've had no accidents reported of any sort of gravel on the road. My thoughts are therefore, in this instance, to have that condition removed. I'm happy with that. I think based on the fact that the whole thing exists, simply widen the gate. I don't really that warrants having a condition like this put on it, given the access is already there. And most vehicles will go in whatever gate and come out the other gate. So I think very few will have to reverse out. So I'm happy to grant the appeal on this one. Councillor Harvey.
Convener, I've got that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, Councillor Waters. So it says circa 3 metres as existing.
Councillor Harvey.
Sorry, similarly, yeah, I'm inclined to grant the appeal. And I think this is an improvement to it, and I think as long as that condition is removed, then we're quite happy to go ahead. So that's it.
Thank you. And Councillor Waters.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, happy to concur with my colleagues on this one. I think tarmac and 85 metres back from the gate is quite excessive with it, and especially given that the property also has another gate with the same type of surface. I feel that it's I'm not convinced on the benefits, so happy to go with the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So, Mr. McLeod, we've got a unanimous decision yet again.
Thank you, convener. Yes, just to confirm, a unanimous decision in favour of upholding the review and granting the planning permission with the removal of condition 3. This is deemed to be acceptable on the basis that cars and vehicles can currently get in as it stands, and there's been no reported incidents in respect of this particular access, and due to the fact that it's being improved, it is deemed to be reasonable in the circumstances to remove condition 3 from the planning permission.
Thank you for that. So members, we'll now move on to item 4.2. This is a residential development and associated works in principle on land 90 metres east of 13 Park Grove, Spitalfield in Perth. Mrs. Tierney, if you could introduce this one for us.
Thank you, convener. We'll just run through the slides first. Spitalfield, appeal site to the east of the village where the yellow star shows there. And then zooming in on that area of ground, the appeal sites within the yellow circle to the east of the existing houses. And then these are the red line boundary plan submitted. So that's obviously not all the land in the ownership. There's 2 areas of blue land there which are also in the ownership of the applicant. And then, although this is an application in principle, this is an indicative layout for the proposed 5 houses, which show basically the same thing, just the one on the right is slightly more detail there in terms of the plot boundaries and so on. This is the from the tree survey information that was submitted with the application. So obviously there's a woodland to the east of the appeal site, and there are a number of trees have been surveyed and highlighted along the boundary, various types and categories of trees. And then the next drawing here is the tree protection plan that is associated with the identified trees. So that is the protection zones around those trees. So you can make out the trees that fall within the plots. Effective, some of the plots there, they do overlap. And then this is an indicative. Again, because it's an application in principle, this is an indicative drawing, because the allocation in the local development plan is for a mixed use development of housing and employment. So we've got the appeal site in the middle in red, the access point onto or where the access is shown within the purple circle at the bottom there, and the blue area in between. The kind of 2 grey rectangles is an indicative commercial development, which is as required by the LDP, but very much an indicative drawing. And then some photographs of the site. So Park Grove, the existing residential development to the west, is the entrance to that is where the orange arrow is on the left-hand side, and the entrance to the appeal site is where the blue arrow is located. Then this is looking back towards the village. So again, the entrance to Park Grove where the orange arrow is, and the entrance into the appeal site where the blue arrow is. And then this is looking in an easterly direction. Again, this is just the access point into the site as it joins the main road. This is now looking from the appeal site out towards the main road. And then this is from a little further back into the site, looking back towards the main road. And then this is looking into the site from the access point. And then as you move into the site, looking back towards the main road, the bus is a good point of reference. So this is from much deeper into the site to the north, looking back towards the entrance to the site, and you can see the area of woodland to the east there, and the houses on Park Grove as well. And then this is looking across the application site. You've now got the trees on the right, and a couple of dwelling houses that have been built to the north just coming into view. And then again, you've got, this was the first dwelling house that was approved at the north side of the site, just at the top there. And then this is now looking across to that dwelling house, and there's another, there's two dwelling houses there. And this is the north part of the site looking towards the woodland. And then this is looking across all of the site where the plots are proposed across to the woodland. And then coming back towards the entrance again, we can see the woodland. This part of the site is where the indicative plans are shown for the commercial area. and then just make out the bus. On the very far right-hand side of that photograph, these are just the existing houses that run along the main road and the entrance into the site. And then Park Grove again to the west there, and this is which I'll come on to, the potential alternative point of access from Park Grove to the application site rather than the one that's proposed. This is an extract from local development plan, current local development plan. So the site allocated as MU6, a mixed use development. So it's the area shown in purple there. So within the settlement boundary, allocated mixed use site. And then this is some information from the transportation officers. So on the left there is an extract from the public road network. So you can see obviously the extent of the public road is the area highlighted in purple. The image on the right is the edge of the red line site boundary as it joins onto the public road network, but there is a gap, if you like, between the edge of the red line where the public road network would begin. So the appeal site, it's a brownfield site formerly used as a coachworks to the east end of Spitalfield and is part of a wider site allocated in the LDP2 for a mixed-use development. Although the application is in principle, 5 houses on large plots are shown on an indicative plan, and although not part of the red line of this application, a drawing has been submitted showing the indicative commercial units on the southern part of the allocation. The MU6 allocation in the LDP2 has a limit of 20 residential units on no more than 75% of the site. There are site-specific requirements included in the LDP for the MU6 allocation, which are class 4 to 6 units or serviced land compatible with neighbouring residential uses, retention, protection and enhancement of woodland along the eastern boundary of the site, green infrastructure on the site to link to this wider network. Archaeological potential requires investigation with mitigation if necessary, and enhancement of biodiversity. In terms of history, refusal of application 16-01358 IPL for 2 houses on land to the north of the site was appealed to the LRB, and the appeal was upheld for the reason that while a comprehensive rather than piecemeal development would be preferred, the land had remained derelict for many years despite the allocation, and that the partial development may lead to the comprehensive redevelopment of the rest of the site. This permission lapsed, and the permission was subsequently granted by the planning service for the 2 dwelling houses again, for the reasons previously given by the LRB, and as you've seen, those 2 have now been built. 4 reasons for refusal. Firstly, the proposal is contrary to the spatial strategy for this allocated site of the LDP, which seeks a small mixed-use development of employment uses and housing on the site of a former bus depot. The proposal relates solely to a section of the allocated site and does not relate to a comprehensive redevelopment of the site, nor is any commercial development proposed. Secondly, the proposal is for 5 large detached houses on 5 large plots, which does not respect the wider residential density in the village to the west. Further, the proposal does not integrate or connect with neighbouring residential development. The proposal is poorly designed, and the design and density does not respect the character and amenity of the place or create and improve links to the surrounding area. The proposal is contrary to MPF 4 Policy 14, Design Quality in Place, and LDP 2 Policy 1, Placemaking and Associated Supplementary Guidance. Thirdly, the proposed development is contrary to MPF 4 Forestry, Woodland and Trees, Policy 6, because of the proximity of housing and garden ground to ancient woodland and the potential adverse impact on their ecological condition. And finally, the existing vehicular access does not have the capacity to accommodate the development, and the proposal will have an adverse impact on road safety and operational performance. The proposal is contrary to MPF 4 Policy 13, Sustainable Transport, and LDP 2 Policy 60A and 60B, Transport Standards and Accessibility Requirements. So in terms of the assessment by the Planning Service, LDP 2 Policy 17, Residential Areas, identifies areas of residential and compatible uses inside settlement boundaries, where existing residential amenity will be protected and, where possible, improved. The category of development relevant to this proposal is infill residential development at a density which represents the most efficient use of the site while respecting its environs. The proposal is for 5 large house plots ranging from 1,446 square metres to 2,260 square metres. Whilst the principle of a residential development on this allocated site is acceptable, a higher density development with a mix of house sizes, types and tenures would provide much needed new and affordable homes for the village in line with what has been envisaged through the allocation in the LDP. LDP 2 Policy 17 aligns with MPF 4 Policy 16, which supports development proposals for new homes on land allocated for housing. MPF 4 Policy 17 aims to encourage, promote and facilitate the delivery of more high quality, affordable and sustainable homes in the right locations, providing choice across tenures to meet the diverse housing needs of people and communities across Scotland. It is considered that this development is poorly designed and not at a density which represents the most efficient use of the brownfield site. MPF 4 Policy 14, Design Policy in Place, states that development proposals will be designed to improve the quality of an area, whether in urban or rural locations and regardless of scale. It also states that development proposals will be supported where they are consistent with the 6 qualities of successful places. LDP 2 Policy 1A Placemaking reflects the principle of positively contributing to the quality of the built environment in terms of design, density, character, amenity and linkages beyond the site, and include appropriate landscape planting. The indicative site plan shows 5 large plots in the central section of the site, with no consideration given to the sensitive integration of the 2 existing houses. The proposal is poorly designed and does not respect the design and density of the wider area to the west, and will lead to a piecemeal development lacking character, connectivity and identity with the village. The amount of proposed planting is not sufficient. There are trees, root protection zones and tree canopies from the ancient woodland, which will be located within the garden ground of 3 of the new houses. Policy requires a buffer of at least 10 metres to protect ancient woodland, and the proposal fails to respect the natural environment and the ancient woodland. In terms of access, concerns were raised by Transport Planning about the proximity of the vehicular access to Park Grove to the west. Transport highlighted a possible alternative access into the site from within Park Grove, but this is not a viable option for the applicant. Although the site is near bus stops, it is not clear how these can be accessed safely on foot to the north and south side of the A98. There remains an objection from Transport Planning due to a lack of detail about safe access and egress into and out of the site, visibility displays, connectivity to the wider village, and because the red line site boundary does not connect with the public road network. Excuse me. The applicant's case is that this is an in-principle application, and the principle of residential use on the MU6 site has already been established through the inclusion of the site in the village boundary and its specific mixed-use designation. The same MU6 site was designated in the 2014 LDP1 and required a comprehensive redevelopment of the site and a master plan, but the current 2019 LDP2 does not require this as a consequence of the intervening LRB decision to grant permission for 2 houses to the north of the site within the MU6 designation. Subsequent further approval for the houses by the Planning Service is given as a reason for allowing this appeal on the basis that the land remains undeveloped, that comprehensive redevelopment of the site is no longer required, and that the development of the site can progress in a partial manner until complete. It is stated that this development will ultimately lead to the complete redevelopment of the whole site. In the intervening period, part of the zoned site was advertised for business use for over a year with no offers made. However, the plans show the site could accommodate business use if there was demand in the future. The plan shows how the 2 existing houses are integrated within the internal road network, and the indicative plots mimic these. The lower density reflects the graduation from built development to the countryside and is more indicative of rural character. There is also no adverse impact on the setting or character of the Spitalfield Conservation Area. Any future detailed application can look at opportunities to link the proposed development's infrastructure to the wider area, such as linking a pedestrian route to ancient woodland to the east, or upgrading the existing access junction to better accommodate pedestrian access within the village. With regard to trees, there's no protected woodland on the site, and the tree survey demonstrates no threat to the ancient woodland, and the site-specific developer requirements of the LDP2 make no mention of any impact on ancient woodland, only that the woodland on the eastern boundary should be protected and retained. This is an application in principle, and the indicative layout can be revised at a later stage to accommodate a 10-metre buffer. To compensate for the loss of grassland and to enhance biodiversity, it is recommended that species-rich wildflower meadow mixes are sown in retained grassland and around the margins of the site. With regard to access, the access to the site as identified in the 2014 and 2019 LDPs is the vehicular access which currently serves the built dwelling houses. The access is also used by buses in line with the existing vehicle operator's licence, and there have been no road safety issues arising. The concerns about the proximity of the access to Park Grove and junction capacity issues were a surprise, given this access has been the designated access for the MU6 zone site for so many years. It is not considered adequate in terms of road capacity. While the concerns about the proximity of the two road accesses are noted, it is considered that within the context of the site in the village and the 20-mile-an-hour limit, the designated MU6 zoning and the geometry of the road junction having good visibility, that these concerns do not pose any significant road safety issues, justifying refusal of the application. So in terms of other information, there are no wider objections to the proposal, but in terms of the specific requirements from transportation, I have got some further comments from them. And with regard to access to the site, concerns have been raised over a period of time from around 2022, when the inquiry first came in for the site to consider 2 points of access and egress for the site. And the first was using the access shown in this proposal from the A984, and the second option was to consider the access from Park Grove, the latter being the preference of transportation officers, as the option onto the A984 would have created two junctions in very close proximity. And with the utilisation of Park Grove, there may be the opportunity to bring that junction up to current standards and create a landscaped area. Transportation advised the applicant that if they wanted to consider the access directly onto the A984, that a road safety audit would be required to address the junction spacing standards and visibility displays that would be obscured by vegetation out with the control of the applicant. The red line of the site boundary submitted does not connect to the public road network. As the visibility displays are not shown within the red line, it is unclear if the applicant has permission to utilise the land to provide the required visibility. The applicant has submitted a number of drawings to show their proposals for road infrastructure, but these do not show how the development will connect with the existing infrastructure within Spitalfield. And as such, the applicant has not shown how residents will be able to walk into the village, travelling by foot to reach facilities or to the bus stop to take the bus for onward travel. The applicant went to engage a road safety auditor, as recommended by Transportation, to undertake an assessment of the proposed access, but they were advised by their advisor that they couldn't see the benefit of doing the road safety audit in terms of addressing the issues that were of concern to the council. So that just gives you a bit more background information on the transportation issues in particular. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Harvey, any questions?
Yeah, a couple of questions. Sorry, I was just trying to figure one of them out. I'll ask the first one first, though. Thanks, that was very detailed. The question I had, the alternate road entrance, I'm also looking at Google Maps here. What was the alternate to? You said it would go into Park Grove. Is it at the northern end of it? No.
The next slide, please. No, we go through another. We might need to go back to some of the ones at the start. Some of the drawings. Yeah, that one will be fine. Yeah, so if we look at the one on the left, the red line is obviously the site boundary, and that would be the access that is proposed. You can see parallel to that, Park Grove. Okay, so it's obviously 2 junctions in close proximity. And it would basically be, if you, just as you come off the main road, you would hang a right before the first dwelling house and come in across a piece of, it's like a piece of public open space basically, but you would come into Park Grove and hang a right straight into the site instead.
Okay, so that's the bit I was thinking, 'cause that kind of waste ground in inverted commas or public grounds, you would actually basically combine the junctions there. Not combine, sorry, I'm over explaining. Yeah, I know what you mean though. I know what you mean, yeah, okay. And just to follow up, if that's okay, convener, what was the problem with that as far as the developer was concerned? Or the applicant is concerned?
All they've, sorry, councillor, all they've said is it's not a viable option for them to do that. I don't know the specific details.
And one other question as well, just to confirm, so there has been, it was originally scheduled for industrial with some kind of industrial units or something like that. But did you, just to clarify, you said that has been advertised on a couple of occasions and nothing's come off it. Was that my interpretation is correct?
Yeah, essentially. So the site has always been a mixed proposal in the local plan, so housing and commercial. What is normal in those circumstances is that if an applicant is proposing to not do the commercial element, that they go and advertise it for sale to see how much interest there is for that. I think it's only been advertised once for at least a period of a year, according to the applicant, and there was no takers. What might be, I don't know if anybody's going to ask the question, but what might be also some useful information is it's obviously been a site in the local plan since 2014. The applicant has submitted a bid to retain the site within the next local plan as well, just so, but to remove the commercial element at this stage. So presumably as part of the consideration of the next LDP, there would be an assessment as to whether that was a realistic proposition for the next LDP.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Councillor Waters.
Thank you. I was going to ask the one on the LDP3, but it's good to know that. Just back on the theme with this road, which I believe has always been used into the site, but the significance of the red line boundary stopping short from a legal perspective, that where you have a development taking place that would require some development outside the red line. What's the, I don't know who this question should be to, but what's the legal ramifications of that, given that it is an in principle as well, please?
So, Councillor Waters, thank you. I mean, any planning application, whether it's in principle or a full planning application, the red line should encompass all the land that is required to service that development. So you would normally expect that to include the access, all of the access into the site and the visibility space. And obviously, as you can see here, the red line is set back a bit from the road, doesn't go all the way up to the road edge, and it doesn't include any of the visibility. And obviously that's something that's been pointed out as being of concern to the transportation and to planning.
Just a couple of questions, if I may. Going back to that point, the gap that we have between the red line and the road, who actually owns that bit? Is it council owned, do you think, or is it part of roads, or do we know?
We haven't got any information at all, convener, about that. There's no other certification being provided. Obviously, yes, the red line is the planning application boundary. The blue land is other land in the ownership of the applicant, and we have got blue land here, but we don't have anything that shows the bit between where they've stopped the red line at the access point in and how it would connect onto the public road.
And my second question comes back to what you were talking about, calling for sites for LDP3. And obviously the applicant is looking to change the site so it is purely residential only, as I understand what you were saying. Now, hypothetically, I'm not sure if it's you or Mr. McLeod actually, this one again. If you had a proposal, given that there's been no interest in the land and as a commercial element, and I mean, it's a small village, I'm not sure anybody would want to be there, but that's another question. But given that hypothetically, if there's a proposal for it to be totally residential, do you know if planning officers could alter it, I suppose, alter the LDP to accept it as a purely residential, or do we have to wait for LDP 3 to come along? I mean, given presumably if there's proof there that there's no commercial interest at all from anybody, could they accept it as being totally residential?
So I think there's a few elements here. If you had a planning application in front of you for this allocated site as it's currently allocated in the LDP, and it was purely residential for the whole site and no commercial element, it would be up to development management to decide whether they could depart from what's in the LDP and grant permission for just housing. And as I said earlier, part of that justification would be that they've marketed the site, there's no interest in it. What are the other considerations that they would take into account in potentially departing from what's shown in the current LDP? Going forward, it may well be that the commercial element is removed from the next LDP. You know, the site has gone through, it's been in the local plan since 2014, so it was presumably bid for maybe in 2010. You know, so we're 16 years down the line with the site. You know, they should potentially be able to provide quite a lot of evidence now about whether the site is attractive for commercial. And obviously, as part of the current LDP proposals, the LDP team will be assessing whether they think it's reasonable in the context of Spitalfield to remove the commercial element.
Just to clarify, then, development management have the power to alter if the right deal is in front of them, is what we're saying.
Deal's maybe not the right word, convener, but yes, you know, and all applications are treated on their own merits, and if it did depart from policy or an allocation in the plan, the applicant would have to give good reasons why that should be accepted by planning, and it would be up to development management. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So, given the number of questions, members, can we proceed to determine the application for review on the basis of the information before us? That is the information contained within the papers and the presentation by the planning advisor, or do we need more information? Councillor Harvey?
No, there's enough information.
Councillor Waters?
Happy to proceed.
And I'm happy to proceed. So, Councillor Harvey, if you could start us off on this one.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to accept the findings of the objection to this for a number of reasons, but I think there's probably entwined with good news as well too. I think the indicative development's the wrong size, as they say. The road entrance doesn't seem to be within standard at all, although there is some alternatives there. But I think this, if this is my decision upheld by you two as well, it's probably an opportunity for the developer to go back and look at this again. So, but however, my decision is to uphold the objection.
Councillor Waters.
Thank you. Testing. I'm going to agree on this one. I think there's a lot more work that needs done, even for an in principle. I think the tree protection for the roots, I think, is an absolute must. Needs to be in there and be shown. And I know it's indicative what's been shown, but I think there's a lot of things still missing that you would want to see in an in principle. I think the road connection we've already discussed with display lines, and whether there is an alternative or the historic road is used, at least that it's done to a set standard. I think the amount of houses in the area doing it all piecemeal, I think it just creates a bit of a mismatch within there. I've no problem with the plots and people having plots and buying and designing to their own within parameters that at least keep a theme or protect the theme of Spitalfield. I think the connectivity, you know, no footpaths connecting up with the rest of the village or anything that needs to be shown. And if it just happens with different bits at a time on this plot, then you're never going to get that. Affordable housing for me is a big bit. You've got 5 houses, well, you're probably going to have considerably more if it's successful through the LDP process, and it's important there's an affordable housing element in there. I accept, and it's not within the remit of this, if what we're doing here, but the employment, the mixed use stuff, I think, you know, that's something for, you know, and it's good to hear it is coming before LDP3, and that's something I think they've got to look at with the, you know, elected members for the area, and that to see whether there is really need for employment land or it is housing. So on the basis is, even with an in principle, I would say there's a lot of information missing in there. So I will stick with officer's decision to refuse this appeal and allow it to go forward within an LDP3 process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I was looking at through the. I'm going to have to. My decision is obviously now academic, of course, because it's already to be approved to refuse. But on this occasion, I'm going to concur with you. There's much of the appeal papers talked about this previous LRB decision, and seem to think that this opened a door to piecemeal development. Now, I've got part of the wording here that said the decision notice noted that while a comprehensive rather than a piecemeal development would be preferred, it was recognised that the land had remained derelict for many years, despite its allocation. In balancing the individual circumstances of this site, it was considered that the partial development may lead to the comprehensive development, which would remove dereliction. In other words, it was looking for comprehensive development. I don't think, as the appeal papers seem to suggest, that open the door to piecemeal development. I don't read it that way. Given that the LDP2 papers indicate a site with up to 20 houses, I think the idea was that this would be developed for the village itself. In rural areas, we're looking for more affordable housing, people to live in villages, not social housing, just affordable housing. I would agree with the planners that the size of the plots do not reflect the area in general. As you said, I think it's not a comprehensive design, or in principle, there's many questions here. I note that the applicant has appealed to the new LDP3 to take away the commercial element, which I think is the right way to proceed, given there's little interest. But we have heard that with the right application, it's possible that we don't have to wait for that. It could be done, and development management have the ability to consider the whole site for residential use. But I think it needs to be looked at as the LDP2 looked at, up to 20 properties in there. And I think there's space in there for that. The question of the access, not really sure what the answer to that one is. There's a gap there that needs to be looked into. But as it stands, I will concur with you to refuse the appeal. Mr. MacLeod.
Thank you. Just to sum up, that we have a unanimous decision refusing the appeal on this occasion. Are there any suggested amendments to the reasons for refusal at all?
I have none, colleagues. Councillor Harvey, no. Councillor Waters? No.
Thank you.
Thank you, members. We'll now move on to the next item, which is number 4.3. This is the change of use of a flat to a short-term let accommodation, Unit 4B, Kings Court, South William Street here in Perth. Mrs. Tierney, if you could introduce that one.
Convener. Location of the appeal site, quite central within Perth, as you can see there, where the yellow star is. And then zooming in on South William Street itself, so number of properties there. This is a top floor flat, so and it's to the rear of the building. And the drawings that were submitted with the application, so the red line site boundary obviously goes round the flat, but it does go round the communal facilities in terms of the access into the site and the kind of area of open space at the rear, and the flat is within the yellow circle there. Then the floor plan, a one bedroom property, top floor. This is the extract from the city centre map from the local development plan. So the yellow area is obviously the yellow and brown, as well as the city centre area. So the appeal site where the red star is in this case falls out with the main central area, just in the white zone, if you like. And this is the building. So this is on South William Street. So we have the communal entrance door within the yellow circle there. And then round to the rear of the property, the top floor there with the two dormers within the yellow circle. That's the appeal property. And then just another couple of angles. Communal bin facilities out the back, garden area, and then the communal access door on the right hand side to the rear. Photograph on the left is the communal entrance door to South William Street, and the one on the right is to the rear communal garden area. And then on the left there is the kind of ground floor communal area before you start heading up the stairs to all the flats. And the one on the right is the top floor landing, communal landing before you go through the door to the communal hallway to the 4 flats on the top floor. And then on the left is 2 flats along the corridor. And then on the right, we've got the appeal site and another property. Sorry, that one would be on the right. So the appeal site is a top floor 1-bedroom flat in a large modern residential building. Access to the building is via a security door which leads to a hallway and a set of stairs that serves all properties in the block, with 4 flats accessed on each floor. There are therefore significant areas of communal use. Kings Court and South William Street are located close to but out with Perth city centre, and this is therefore an area which is considered to be residential with compatible uses. There's no dedicated parking for the block of flats, and there are a number of on-street parking areas close by. So the reasons for refusal: firstly, by virtue of the shared entry arrangements in a block of flats, there would be a potential for an increase in noise nuisance both when occupiers are using the property and arriving, leaving the property. As a result of this, the proposal would adversely impact the existing residential amenity for residents living permanently in the block, and especially the occupiers of flats 4A, 4C and 4D. Accordingly, the proposal is contrary to policy 30E tourism of MPF4, which states that new proposals for short-term holiday letting will not be supported where the proposal will result in an unacceptable impact on local amenity and character of the area. And secondly, by virtue of the location of the property being out with the city centre area, the shared entry arrangements in a block of flats, the flatted nature of the proposal, there would be potential for an increase in noise nuisance both when occupiers are using the property and arriving, leaving. As a result of this, the proposal would adversely impact on the residential amenity currently enjoyed by those living permanently in the block, and would introduce a land use which is not compatible with the surrounding predominantly residential properties contained in the block. Accordingly, the proposal is contrary to policy 17 residential areas of the Perth and Kinross LDP2 and the Council's non-statutory planning guidance on short-term lets, which both seek to protect existing residential amenity, and policy 1A of the Perth and Kinross LDP2, which seeks to ensure that all new proposals contribute positively to the surrounding environment. And finally, by virtue of the shared entry arrangements in a block of flats, there would be a potential for an increase in noise nuisance both when occupiers are using the property and leaving the property. And as a result of this proposal is contrary to policy 56 of the adopted Perth and Kinross LDP2, which looks to protect sensitive receptors from noise generating sources. So in terms of the assessment by the planning service, the site lies within a predominantly residential area, although there are some commercial properties in the area, such as a gym, commercial garage and a carpet centre. The local area is predominantly residential, including privately owned or privately rented properties, including potentially as student accommodation. It appears this property has started to be used as an STL, although there do not appear to be any approved STL licences within this residential block. The flatted and communal nature of the block and the property mean that there would be some potential for disturbance from guests arriving, leaving and using the property on all the other residents, and in particular on the 3 other flats which share the same hallway. There is a strong need to protect existing residents' amenity through both the implementation of the STL's non-statutory guidance and various parts of policies 1 and 17 and elements of policy 56 of LDP2. And there are 2 significant considerations in this regard. Excuse me. The first is that the STL may not actually generate additional footfall movements above that of a typical residential property. And whilst there may be an increase, there is as much of a chance that the level of movements will either remain the same or be less than a typical residential flat, depending on the circumstances of the guest occupier. Sorry. It's very much a case-by-case matter, depending on the nature of the occupiers, which makes the assessment of STLs challenging, especially within areas that are out with but close to the city centre. The level of impact will also vary depending on what the internal arrangements are like and the extent of shared areas. Secondly, the location of the property is a significant consideration. The property is located out with the city centre. The building is residential in character, with no commercial uses on the ground floor. And although there are some non-residential uses along South William Street, the majority of the street is residential. In terms of MPF 4, excuse me, as well as protecting the character and amenity of existing areas, Policy 30 looks to
So would you like to have a 5-minute break for a moment, just to? Yeah, sure you don't want to break for a moment? Okay.
Yes, whilst the economic and tourist part, Policy 30 is met, and the loss of the flat from permanent housing stock is not perhaps an issue because of the size of the property, there is the potential for adverse impact on the amenity of the area. Excuse me. So the appellant, they looked at a flat in the city centre, given that, excuse me, given that there are difficulties in gaining permission in other areas. And they were confident that there would be permission here, given the street is a mix of commercial and residential properties. They have rules and guidance in place for occupiers and guests. And they won't have access to communal areas like the garden. They have hard rules against parties or excessive noise. And in their experience from other properties, they have never had an issue. They've had an extra insulation to protect from noise. And they've take close care of the maintenance of the property. And they very much care about the property and making Perth a much better place for tourists and locals. Guests would be contributing directly to the local business area, including shops, cafes and restaurants. The property is situated in a central location within Perth, in close proximity to transport, links and amenities, making it highly suitable for short-term visitors. And in terms of other matters, there are 8 letters of objection, which are all objecting to the proposal on the grounds that the STL will alter the character of the area and would adversely affect their residential amenity. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. We'll go to questions. I have no questions. Councillor Waters?
No questions on it.
No questions from me either.
Thank you for that. Members, on that basis, can we proceed to determine the application for review on the basis of the information before us? That is, the information contained within the papers and the presentation by the planning advisor. Or do we need more information? Councillor Waters?
Happy to proceed.
Happy to proceed.
I too am happy to proceed as well. That's the Councillor Waters. If you
Testing 5 4 3 2 1 1 2 3 4 5. On this one, I'm going to uphold the officer's view on this one to refuse the short-term let. I think from a security perspective, this is a residential area. If there was other short-term lets in the building, I may have a different view, but given there isn't, to protect the amenity of the residents who are already in the block, the security of the block, and I will uphold the officer's view on this one and go for refusal.
Thank you for that. With all, I'll take the next one if I may. With all short-term lets, the core of this is always residential amenity. That's the basic core of all these applications. We've got a flat with a commercial entrance, and from the objections received, there is a level of anxiety amongst residents that there's partial material consideration for planning. We're outside the city centre, and it's the primary residential area. Now, we've had cases before this, and there's been appeals made to various bodies, the Scottish Reporter, and the points raised are valid, I think, and that is that, tourism is fine, but it must be compatible with residential amenity, and impacts on amenity are not dependent on any recorded complaints of antisocial behaviour. The intensification of movement is the real problem of people coming and going, and that affects the residential amenity. And amenity can arise even with effective control due to that frequent movement of people. And the introduction of a short-term let would effectively, in this instance, I think, alter the character of the development, which is currently a private residential area. And given all those factors, I'm going to concur with you, Councillor Waters, and on this occasion refuse the appeal. Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, similarly, I vote to refuse the appeal. Again, it's down to the shared entrance area of it. It's not really a suitable property for doing this type of thing, in my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you both. Mr. MacLeod, we have a clear majority to refuse, and I presume on the same condition, reasons for refusal that we have in front of us.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on. Mr. Tierney, do you want to have a recess for 5 minutes? Well, we'll give you we'll have a 5-minute recess. Yeah, thank you. And good afternoon, we're back again. And we only have one last paper to look at this afternoon. So we're now on to item 4.4, which is the erection of a replacement garage with ancillary accommodation at Glenburn in Bellwood Park in Perth. So Mrs. Tierney, we'll go again, shall we? Here we go.
Thank you, convener. So these are the PowerPoint slides. So a appeal site denoted with the yellow star, just up off Dundee Road, the east side of the city centre. Next slide, please. So zooming in on Bellwood Park itself, the applicant's property is the house called Glenburn, and where it says Glenburn is the house with the yellow arrow, and the garage, which is part of the proposal, is the other arrow. Red Inch is the house next to the appeal site. That is not within the ownership of the applicant. So red line application site boundary. So again, you can see red line, the property itself, large garden, and the garage down onto Bellwood Park itself. Existing elevations of the existing garage. Double garage, it's probably 2 single garages side by side. Next slide, please. And then the proposal, so we've got the floor plans on the top there. So you can see the 2 garage spaces on the bottom and the ancillary accommodation on the top floor within the roof, and then the right hand image is the roof plan with solar panels on it. And at the bottom we've got the proposed elevations. The one on the left is the elevation that faces the road, again with the solar panels on it. I think you can just make out on those drawings on the bottom there's like a red line. That's where the architect has shown the line of the existing building. So it's to try and show a comparison to what's proposed. Next slide, please. So this is the elevation, just in a bit more detail, that would face the road. So again, the two single garage doors onto Bellwood Park itself, and the roof. This is more just so you can see the materials as well. Natural slate on the roof, white timber fascias and soffits, white metal garage doors, some natural stone within that as well, white rendered walls, black UPVC, rainwater goods, etc. And a metal stair on the side as well. So this is the house, Glenburn. As you come up to the top of Bellwood Park, you can see where the yellow arrow is where the new building would be located. You can just see Red Inch, the neighbouring house to the rear behind it. So you can see the type of dwelling house. This whole area is a conservation area. This isn't a listed building, but it is a conservation area. And this is the pedestrian access to the front of the property. And then this is as you look up Bellwood Park, so you can start to see where the existing garage is, below the yellow arrow. A couple of other houses, the neighbouring house, the top side, and across the road as well. Another slightly closer up image of the front of the existing garages. Again, you can see the proximity of the existing garages to the neighbouring property. The neighbouring property is further up the hill. And then this is looking from it's a dead end. This is the last house on the left-hand side as you head up the hill. So you can see it's got its own double garage, and then there's the 2 garages adjacent to the footway of the appeal site. And again, just in a bit closer detail. This is looking from the dwelling house back towards the existing garage. You probably can't really see it just because of the way the light is, but you can see the neighbouring house further up the hill there on the left-hand side. And this is just the steps up to the back of the existing garages. With the back walls next to existing little traditional summer house in the garden. And then this is looking up the hill past that little summer house to where the existing garage is. where the blue arrow is, and then the house red inch at the top side. This is just looking back again at that from within the garden area. You can see, you can just see the garage coming out there. Again, this is just another view of the garden area next to the dwelling house. This is a couple of properties on the other, directly opposite the pedestrian access into the house. They are referred to in the tenants' papers. So, for example, the garage there on the left comes onto the footway, and then a building there on the right-hand side, which is very similar, a garage on the ground floor. Appears to be ancillary accommodation in the roof. Yeah, you get a better image of it there. So existing house and a garage with the accommodation on the upper floor behind the wall. So this is, so on the right, again, that's that same elevation of the garage that faces the road. The red arrow is where the house next door is. That's the image on the bottom there. The image top left has a red line on it. That is my best guess as to the height of the ridge of the of what's proposed in relation to the property next door. And you can see it in a bit more detail on the elevation there, that red line, which shows the outline of the height of the existing parapet wall in front of the garage. And then you've got the roof above that. So my red line is purely indicative of where I'm estimating the top of the ridge of that roof is. This is 2 images from the appellant's papers, so just they are giving comparisons of other properties in the street. The one on the left is Summerhill. That is the house directly opposite. So you can just see the garage on the left-hand side. Double gable, big double gable property on the other side, and then the one on the right is Bellwood Cottage, and that's at the entrance to Bellwood Park, and that's Dundee Road that it faces onto. Okay, so well, as you can see, appeal site is located in a residential area. This is within Canule Conservation Area as well. Dwelling house occupies a large plot near to the top of the hill at Bellwood Park, and the existing single-storey double garage is remote from the house. There is no vehicular access as such to the property, only the double garage, which obviously takes its access off Bellwood Park. The proposal would see the existing double garage replaced with a new double garage and includes an upper floor, which would be used as ancillary domestic accommodation, accessed via an external metal staircase on the east and north sides closest to the neighbouring house, Red Inch to the east. There are 4 reasons for refusal. I will not repeat them if that is okay, convener. They're in your papers, obviously, but obviously in terms of layout, siting, design and impact on the conservation area, the main issues. The assessment by the planning service, the topography of the site and slight curve along the road make the design quirky. There's a kink in the elevation along the road and each half of the garage sit at slightly different heights. The proposal would sit closer to the street than the neighbouring house, although obviously in the same position as the existing. It is acknowledged that other houses in the street have outbuildings with upper floors, but these are less prominent due to being located behind walls or having hip roofs. The mass of the building would be a visually prominent feature. The west elevation is most concerning as it's viewed from the street looking east, and due to the levels will appear prominent. The gable end and white render will further emphasise the height, scale and mass of the building. The ancillary living accommodation is modest and acceptable, however it is 30 metres away from the house, lessening the interdependency between the two. It is also located much closer to the neighbouring house to the north and also the southeast. The external staircase is only 1.4 metres away from the neighbour and allows overlooking of their side windows, front garden and access to the house. Although there could have been an opportunity to improve the visibility by moving the garage back from the road, any visibility concerns are as per the existing arrangement, and there's therefore no objection to that. So the applicant's case states that the proposed building will again comprise 2 garage spaces. And they'll have a split level floor to facilitate level access from each of the doors. It sits on the footprint of the existing garage, but is slightly larger for modern vehicles. However, it doesn't encroach any closer to either the neighbouring wall or existing sunroom. The higher garage will have a rear stepped approach from the rear garden and a rear-facing window, and the lower garage will have rear-facing and side-facing windows. There's a metal stair and the doors are sensibly in the same position, which also has the least impact for all the residents of Bellwood Park. The proposed eaves level of the new garage is slightly below the existing road-facing parapet wall height. The upper level provides ancillary accommodation, a single guest room with small kitchen and separate shower, intended for residents of the house and extended family only. The upper floor is formed by a pitched slate roof. The external stair to the upper level and door is on the east elevation. The external materials proposed are stone to the front of the garage to tie in with the wall, rendered walls elsewhere, a pitched natural slate roof along with timber windows and doors. In terms of the buildings that are already on the street, there is a large double garage with an office workshop accommodation above, built in 2008 opposite the applicant's property, and it's one of the first buildings you see, unlike this proposed building, which sits at the top of the road end. The Glenhall garage has a prominent gable end facing the roadway, the balcony above the garage door. As with the proposed building, the land at Glenhall slopes down away from the garage, making it prominent. The architecture of the existing garages is not aesthetically pleasing. There are a mix of architectural styles, shapes and sizes in the street, and also building materials. These buildings are a combination of original houses and outbuildings and garages, extensions, new garages, outbuildings, all at varying heights and masses based on the particular site and its topographical constraints, and with roof styles to suit function as well as form. It would therefore seem there is no precedent for a particular building style or roof shape. The building is more in keeping with other buildings on the street and improves the overall appearance and ambience of the street rather than detracting from it. Care has been taken to minimise overlooking. The main windows on the first floor look into the applicant's own garden. Windows have been kept as far as possible as Velux type units, which make overlooking more difficult. And dormers would have also increased the visual impact of the building. The access stair has been positioned to ensure that there are no windows or glazed doors looking into the neighbouring property. It is a functional stair which does not have larger than necessary landings, which could allow prolonged resting or sitting. An internal stair was considered, but this causes a number of issues relating to available floor space, or means the building would have needed to be larger. And a stair on the opposite side of the garage would necessitate the removal or relocation of the existing summer house, and in any event would render the building less aesthetically attractive from the main street. The strong functional relationship between the house and the garage is long established, and this is maintained. The accommodation is for guests, immediate family and a home office in line with the supplementary guidance. And there are no other objections to the proposal.
Thank you very much. Open to questions. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, just one question, just to confirm the additional, I couldn't quite see from the elevations, the additional height of the roof is about 3 meters, was it? Or was that too much? Very roughly.
Sorry, councillor. That's probably about right. If you look at the existing height of the parapet wall, it's about the same again and about half as much again. So about, yeah, about 3 meters.
Okay, that's fine.
Councillor Waters.
No questions, convener.
Okay, coming back to one of the photographs, it's trying to assess the height of this visually, the height of this extension, the pitched roof. I thought we can go back a few photographs to looking at the road if it's possible, or forward, whichever way we go forward. I think for this one.
If we go to the image that's got the couple of photographs on the left-hand side, and then the house, photo of the house on the right.
That's the one. That's better. Given the pitch roof on there, is it going to be higher than the house? Obviously, it won't be higher than the house red inch, but presumably the house is opposite.
I think you'd be better looking at the. Go forward a few slides, please. Next one. Next one. Yeah. So obviously, convener, you know, I've had to, as I said, give a best guess as to where the ridge height would be. So you can obviously see the house next door, the height of it. You then do step down the hill to the neighbouring property and the existing double garage, which is now going to have this pitched roof on it. But, you know, I've drawn a line there that doesn't, you know, there's no way if you're looking straight at that property that the ridge of that garage is as tall as that house next door yet. That makes it look like it kind of is. I think it's very difficult because of the levels on the street. And when you're looking at a 2D image on a drawing to actually really gain an appreciation of, maybe if you looked at, maybe if I'd drawn a red line on the bottom image, that might have helped, but you might just have to use your imagination. You know that you're probably same height again as the existing garage and half the height again to where the ridge height will be. And that would probably take you to about between the first and second floor on the neighbouring house, I would say, as an estimate. But again, you're looking at 2D drawings, and you know, without a full street scene view, it is possibly a little bit difficult to picture the exact impact. But I think the ridge is approximately between first and second floor on the neighbouring house. But obviously, at some distance down the hill, you know, you're a good few meters away from that house as well, maybe 6 or 7.
And another question is regarding ancillary accommodation. I mean, the norm is that would normally be close to the house, but this is some 30 meters away, I believe. So there's no distance in the actual supplementary guide as far as I'm aware, but the thought seems to be here that it's too far away.
There's nothing in terms of a distance. What the SG says is that there should be a clear demonstration of a functional relationship with the main house, proof that it can be comfortably accommodated within the site, evidence of its subordination to the existing house, confirmation that it won't have an unacceptable impact on the visual and residential amenity of the site or the surrounding area. The design and layout of the ancillary accommodation will be as important as the physical and functional relationship. So proposals should be minimal in size, normally 1 bedroom, which in this case it is, and of a scale which is capable of being readily integrated into the use of the principal house once any temporary need has ceased. I mean, it is part of the residential curtilage here. And there is no other vehicular access to the property. In terms of design and appearance, proposals should be proportionate to the existing dwelling house and neighbouring properties, use materials that will complement the sense of place and existing buildings, be subsidiary in scale to that of the principal dwelling house, should retain sufficient space between and around neighbouring properties, and take into account prevailing density of the area as well as the character and visual amenity of the surrounding area. what it does say right at the start is ancillary accommodation should take the form of a physical extension to the house, including a degree of internal connection. In some circumstances, it may be appropriate to convert and/or alter an existing detached outbuilding to form new accommodation where the proposal is modest in scale and form and does not give rise to any significant detrimental impact on the visual or residential amenity of the area. So that's pretty much everything that's in the supplementary guidance.
Thank you for that. That provides a bit of information for me. So no other questions, members. So can we proceed to determine the application for review on the basis of the information before us? That is the information contained within the papers and the presentation of the planning advisor, or do we require more information? Councillor Harvey?
I'm happy with information.
Happy to proceed.
It was working right a minute ago, it goes off. Okay, this is a particularly difficult one, I think. In some ways, it should be quite simple when you look at it, but it's proving a bit difficult. And to be critical, I think, on this occasion, in this modern day and age, it would have been far more helpful if the applicant's agent, the architect, provided us with some form of visual interpretation of how it would look, whether an artist's impression or a virtual image, because I would have hoped that might have come with the papers, but it would make this a lot more easier than what we have before us. It's a conservation area. I'm not sure why it's a conservation area, because I'm not sure what we're trying to conserve, because it's just a road with houses in it. There's no historical monuments or buildings, whatever. But the difficulty here, and I accept the concept of replacing the garages, having seen the site, I think that's a good idea, and I understand that and would support that. The difficulty here is how to imagine the height of this pitch roof. That makes it very difficult. I don't think there's a concern about whether or not it's an ancillary accommodation. As we've said, it's in the curtilage, so I think that's a fair point. So I don't see that as an issue. The issue here is how to imagine this site. As best I can, my thoughts are that it will be quite high. It will be intrusive, I think. Visually unacceptable, I think, in the area. My apologies. Are we back on live? Yeah, my apologies to everyone. We had a fire alarm which has proved to be a false alarm. So now I have to try and put my mind back to where we were. So I'll start again. Basically, my criticism is that with the appeal papers coming in, it would have been vastly more helpful if the applicant's agent, the architect, had given us a visual image of what this would look like, either an artist's impression or a virtual computer-generated image, which make it far easier. As I said, this is a conservation area. And I repeat again, I'm not sure why it's a conservation area, because it's just a road with houses in it, but irrespective, that is what it is. As far as the ancillary accommodation side of it is concerned, we've accepted it's in the same curtilage. I don't see that really as an issue, but the real difficulty here is imagine how this is going to look, and trying to piece it together as best I can. I feel it will be visually intrusive for the height of the ridge roof, and on that basis, as it stands, I'm going to have to refuse the appeal. If the applicant wants to represent it with the right images, perhaps it might be relooked at again. But the only thing I would say is, I say I'm going to have to refuse the appeal on three other reasons as given by the officer. I'm not sure whether reasons for refusal number 3 needs to be left in there, but that obviously will let my colleagues speak first, and then we'll go from there with advice from Mr. McLeod. So let me see who's on my list. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, I agree with yourself, convener. I think I'm not sure why it is a conservation area, but we'll just have to accept it as probably to do with the style of the houses, I would imagine. However, that doesn't matter here. It's far too far away from the building. It's far too big a roof for there. And the plans don't do any favours either, because it does look like it's quite I can't remember the exact phrase the council planners used in an objection, but quite an odd shaped building slightly away from things. It would also going to entail into the next door's garden, I think, too. So I agree. We'll uphold the objection. Yeah.
Councillor Waters.
No, I'm going to. I would overturn the refusal and go for approval with this. I think any of the buildings going up, any of the garage buildings going up, there's one further down that's through a very wide gate, and you see quite clearly, and it's quite opposing. But it fits in when you're on a hillside and you're looking upside. Every building is going to be imposing. When you're looking downhill, everything just all blends in because you're looking down on the buildings rather than up from a lower angle. And with it all, I feel that, you know, the location where it is, and you look at the ridge lines, and you look at Summers Hill behind it, you get a lot of these angular ridges there as well. And I think the ridge line fits in with that building there, going up. It is a dead end road. There's one house further up. Then it's greenbelt land, so there should never ever be any development beyond that. I don't know whether a never ever is a real term, but in terms of protecting greenbelt, I think it's essential we do where absolutely possible. I feel moving the garage backward, Red Inch, I'm not sure if that's pronounced right, the house up to it. If you moved the garage back to it and added a pitch to it, you would more interfere with their view from that house, and it would affect their visual amenity. And I do agree that this comes down to the real issue here is visual amenity with the area. And I don't think it, you know, and I get it's subjective in a sense, but I think with the quality of the material, the ridge lines, I think all the garages, buildings going up that street are imposing when looking from downhill, and I don't think you can get over that. I think there's a clear precedent with the garages going up the street as well, so I feel it's a bit unfair to say, you know, this one can't have it, because I think, and I know there was a suggestion to push it back, but if I'm, you know, if you're the person in Red Inch and you push it back, then it will affect their visual amenity, I think, and their views. In my opinion, so on that basis, I would not, it's totally irrelevant, but on that basis, I would approve the or go with the appeal.
Okay, thank you for that. So, Mr. McLeod, we seem to have a majority 2-1 to refuse. I've suggested removal of number 3. So I think with so the accommodation side, I don't think is a problem. I'm not sure, but Councillor Harvey, if you agree,
Yes,
yeah. So we're suggesting removal of refusal number 3, but still refusing the appeal itself. Thank you.
So just to sum up, convener, we have a 2-1 majority decision to refuse the appeal. Councillor Braun and Councillor Harvey acting as the majority, and Councillor Waters in the minority opinion. And you're also suggesting to remove condition 3 from the decision notice, on the basis that you feel that there is a strong enough functional relationship between the house and the ancillary accommodation. You noted that it is the ancillary accommodation is within the curtilage of the red line boundary, and with that in mind, it seems appropriate to remove condition 3 from the decision notice. On that basis, there would just be conditions 1, 2, and 4 remaining.
That's correct, yes. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of today's meeting. Only goes for me to thank my 2 colleagues, Councillor Harvey and Councillor Waters. Councillor Waters for stepping in, I think, at the last minute. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mrs. Tierney. We've got you through it, I think, successfully. After all that, it was quite a long one as well. Thanks to Councillor McLaren for her input. Apologies to viewers for the interruption because of a false fire alarm, but it is what it is. We have to move when these go off. And also apologies for what seems to be intermittent problems with the microphones. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the next one, which I believe is on the 2nd of March. Thank you.